I started to wonder, I wonder how many employees, if you went and asked them and said, do you feel physically, psychologically safe at work where you have a strong sense of purpose? Do you have reliable relationships? Are your managers approachable? Is your boss approachable? And do you see a future there? I wonder how many employees would say yes to all three.
Welcome to Chain of Learning, where the links of leadership and learning unite. This is your connection for actionable strategies and practices to empower you to build a people-centered learning culture, get results, and expand your impact so that you and your team can leave a lasting legacy. I'm your host and fellow learning enthusiast, Katie Anderson. Ikigai has become one of the hottest concepts in leadership and personal development. But here's the catch. What most of us in the West think of as Ikigai, that viral Venn diagram, isn't actually the essence of Ikigai at all. At its core, it's about meaning, connection, and creating a life and workplaces where people truly feel life is worth living. To help us unpack the real meaning of Ikigai, I'm joined by Nicolas Kemp, Japanologist, researcher, podcaster, and author of Ikigai-Kan, Feel a Life Worth Living, and the new book, Rolefulness, co-authored with Professor Daiki Kato. Nick is the founder and head coach of Ikigai Tribe, a global community of educators, psychologists, and coaches dedicated to bringing the authentic Japanese perspective of Ikigai to leadership in life. With decades of experience living in Japan and training leaders worldwide, Nick has become a trusted voice on how Ikigai can be embodied, not just studied. I'm thrilled to welcome Nick to Chain of Learning to explore not just what Ikigai really means, but how we can apply it in our own roles in organizations. We started off our conversation with the question, what is Ikigai and why is it so often misunderstood? Let's dive in.
This is both an easy and challenging question. So an easy way to answer this question is to simply ask the question, what makes your life feel worth living? What matters to you? What's important to you? But also, who's important to you? What do you want to be doing? And if you can answer all those questions, you've uncovered all these Ikigai. The more complex response could be, well, it's relatable to positive psychology, existential positive psychology. It involves philosophy, psychology. It's something we can teach, learn, yet ironically for most Japanese, it's something they don't even talk about. Most Japanese wouldn't even know it's a topic of research. If you go on to ResearchGate, you'll find hundreds of papers on Ikigai, relating it to robot design, to positive psychology, to solving problems such as depression. So that's the complex side. So it is an area of research. And then I guess the misconception is people think it's this one big thing to achieve, whereas in Japan, it's often this accumulation of smaller joys, or as Ken Mogi would say, who's a neuroscientist and author, I guess a celebrity neuroscientist in Japan, he says it's a spectrum of all these things in your life, whether they're small joys to life-defining goals, that make up your Ikigai.
Thank you for that description. And I love how you frame up Ikigai. And yet there's so many misconceptions out there. I've heard you use the phrase Ikigai hoax. So tell us about what is the hoax that's out there and the misconception that keeps getting perpetuated on LinkedIn and in so many places.
Well, I've got to thank my son for that, because he came up with that term. Oh, Dad, it's the Ikigai hoax, because he's starting to edit my podcast. So yeah, that was like, yeah, I'm going to use that. So I should thank him. So the hoax is this idea, it's this sweet spot of that very popular viral Venn diagram of doing something that you love, that you're good at, that the world needs, and that you can be paid for. Now that's inspiring, and it's obviously changed lives, and it's very helpful. It's very seductive. It's simply not Ikigai. So it's not Japanese in origin. I think that Venn diagrams being this accumulation or is it reiterations of someone's idea. I think it was a hedgehog concept, and it's just evolved. And then someone who won't mind me sharing his name, Mark Quinn, who I interviewed, playfully merged Ikigai with the Venn diagram, removing purpose from the center after he watched a TED talk. And then it went viral and people love it.
Yeah.
They love sharing it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, why have we fallen for this? Why do we love this? Why do we love these Japanese words? And I think if you know anything about Japan and you stop and thought, you would realize, well, hang on. Japanese don't generally define things. Like they struggle to define things because they know there's always more to an idea or concept. And they certainly wouldn't be talking about money.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how I think it went viral as the purpose Venn diagram to some degree, but when you put Ikigai in the center, it just blew up.
Yeah.
And people are posting it on LinkedIn, as you know, every day.
Yeah.
And my son calls me the Ikigai police.
Well, I love that you get back to the essence of it. And I think, that's great that it's inspired, the Venn diagram is inspiring people to think about purpose and what their purpose is and that meaning. But it's such a Western approach, isn't it, to like want to put like a strong framework on it or make it a tool and like define that this is how it is. Whereas in my experience, also, living and working in Japan, things are a little more ephemeral. It's a little bit more of as a feeling, a way of being. And, I think about this, you and I talked about on your podcast as well, like the way that the essence of Kaizen, of continuous improvement, has been sort of tried to be brought over to the West versus its essence in Japan, which is about, looking at small ways to make improvements each and every day, starting with ourselves. But like it's become like an event or a specific thing you do. And we just tend to toolize. That's not a word, but like toolize and framework it and just make it something more rigid rather than the essence. And I feel like that essence sometimes is lost. I'd love for you to share, Nick, too, how you came to know so much about Ikigai. You call yourself a Japanologist, and a little bit more of your background to share your enriched, real deep understanding of these principles as well.
Yeah, I'm probably an armchair Japanologist, to be fair. But so it all started in 1998, and I was in Japan teaching. I'd been in Japan before. In 95, I'd done a 1-year traineeship as a trainee chef, and I came back to Japan to teach. And I remember the first day on my job, young and ambitious, trying to show off my Japanese. I was talking to a Japanese coworker, and we're walking over to a cafe for lunch. And she casually asked this question, like, "Oh, Nick, what's your Ikigai?" I know, like, "Oh, Ikigai, what's that?" And she gave me this very inspiring explanation. And I'm like, "What? You have one word to articulate all that?" And I couldn't believe it. And I remember going back to the teacher's classroom and saying, "Hey, do you know this word Ikigai?" to the foreign teachers, and they didn't know. And I thought, what an inspiring word. And I remember going into work the next day thinking, I've got to ask this coworker about this word. And she'd been transferred. And I remember this, I can still taste the disappointment, like, oh no, I can't ask her more about this amazing word. And then life moved on, and I didn't really hear Ikigai ever asked or spoken to me after that. And then 20 years later, I saw the Venn diagram and I thought, I remember that word, but I don't remember it being presented to me like that. And yeah, that can't be it, and kind of brushed it off. Then I kept on seeing it. Then a best-selling book came out on it. And I just started to realize, well, everything about Ikigai, from the Venn diagram to the word being from Okinawa to the word being the secret to a long and happy life, is either just completely factually wrong or romanticized. And it started to eat at me. And, the inner voice was saying, oh, you should do something about this. And I'm like, well, I don't know what it is. Because, and then, it took me about a year before, okay, I'll do something about it. And then I saw it on the World Health Organization website as the Venn diagram. And that was sort of the final trigger. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to do a podcast. I will interview Japanese academics, researchers who can speak English on this concept. And I remember literally overnight, I went from not having a website to getting a domain, quickly building a website, mocking up the front page, then reaching out to Professor Hasegawa, who was the first guest on my podcast. And then that's when the chain of learning started to form.
Codified in your book, Ikigai-Kan, which I loved reading, and I still love going back to it for its, for listeners wanting to know more about the real essence of Ikigai. Nick does an incredible job talking about the real meaning and how you can bring it forward into your life, and how it's, how we can really think about purpose and the things that light us up. And it doesn't have to be a set, I guess, a formalized set way. Maybe your Ikigai now is to dispel the myth of Ikigai and bring it forward in the world. You're of the Venn diagram, at least, but
Oh, it's interesting because the Venn diagram does lead to people finding me, and it's actually helped my business. So in a way, I've got to be grateful for the Venn diagram. But if we do want a structure on what Ikigai is, there is Ikigai and there's Ikigai-Kan, and that's why I titled the book Ikigai-Kan. So Ikigai refers to Ikigai Taisho or Ikigai objects. So these are things we can identify: relationships, people, roles, hobbies, small joys. And then the Kan is the awareness, sense, or feeling. So Ikigai is something you ultimately feel. It's an experience, a sensation, and it makes you feel that life is worth living. So that's why I titled the book Ikigai-Kan, to sort of highlight that point.
I love that connection, and this word. I've seen the word meaningful throughout, the book, and you've talked about it too. And I keep coming back to this word meaningfulness on this podcast too, about what we've tried to do with translating the Toyota production system, the Toyota way, what oftenly referred as lean. We've missed the meaningful connection, and I really feel like that Ikigai is that essence, that meaningfulness of what we're doing. It's not just like applying tools and improving processes, but it's about creating a meaningful experience and helping people feel connected to their work. And I think I think about all the companies, and I visit in Japan, and I take people on my Japan leadership experience, this sense of Ikigai, of creating a space where people feel that life is worth living. That's like the foundation, the essence of it. And then the rest follows. And I feel like we miss that so much in the West.
We're always focused on the big goal or dream, and we do miss the meaning of the seemingly small, but that's kind of what matters at the end of the day. It's, you go home, if you've got a dog, it's the tail wagging of your dog, or if it's your cat, it's their purr, or it's the hug, or it's the laughter of your children. It's all these small things that we live for, but we seem to put ourselves through hell to achieve a certain goal. And then once we get there, it's either never as much as we hoped, or it doesn't last. So Japanese seem to understand, and they're more grateful of the small. And it is meaning making. It's like, what does this mean to me? Why does this matter? Like that could be a key question. Like, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? And not be always forward focused.
Yes, that concept of like slowing down to be, not just do. And I think that was one of the topics of my very first podcast episodes, maybe episode 4, like being versus doing. We're in such a do culture that we don't focus on that being, or we forget about it. We're so caught up in the doing, but it's that essence really that gives life meaning, that is the true Ikigai for us. One of the things I do so much with leaders at all levels is helping them get, I haven't used the word Ikigai per se, but we talked about getting back to what's your purpose and what are the things that are most important to you. And there's so many different ways you can explore that, through drawing, through conversation, through journaling. But what I ask leaders to share what that is, it always comes back to those true things. Like, it's about community, it's about family, it's about helping others, it's about something that lights them up, it's about something that brings them joy, but it's all about humanity and human connection. And so like help say, okay, well, what are those? Okay, so how is that getting lost in the workplace, right? How can we get back to that essence of purpose? Because sometimes we kind of get disconnected from that. What do you experience in the people you work with getting back to the Ikigai essence of life and work?
Definitely think we should be tying Ikigai to our social world, whether that's professionally or personally. And I do have this belief that every workplace should be an ibasho, which is a sub-theory of Ikigai. So there's papers on this concept. So ibasho is almost like Ikigai. It was a common word just to mean whereabouts. And then as Japan started to have problems with children skipping school and people staying at home, like social withdrawal with hikikomori, ibasho became a solution, or the word for that solution. And ibasho is this place to be, literally means a place to be. And so every workplace should be a place to be. And it's built on 3 ideas: that you feel comfortable or safe and you have a sense of purpose, that you have reliable social relationships, and that you have a reason to keep coming back. You have this future there. And I started to wonder, I wonder how many employees, if you went and asked them and said, do you feel physically, psychologically safe at work where you have a strong sense of purpose? Do you have reliable relationships? Are your managers approachable? Is your boss approachable? And do you see a future there? I wonder how many employees would say yes to all 3. I sort of had the impression it definitely wouldn't be yes to all 3. And that's a crucial aspect of Ikigai, your social relationships, both work and at home. And probably all of us knows what it feels like to be in a job you despise, where it's soul destroying, where you're afraid or intimidated to approach the boss. And it's like, that it should not be like that. You probably know more about that than me. Do you see that a lot in workplaces where it's either ibasho or not?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the vision of what we're trying to get to, and really the crux of this change, that getting back to a more people-centered learning culture focus, and out of the command and control, short-term thinking. We got to get results now, and it's like we've gotten something backwards. And I've been really speaking about this a lot, about how we're so focused on the results that we forget that the way to get results is through actually creating a space for people. It's true respect for people. That in Japanese, the Toyota pillar of respect for people actually is the essence of holding precious what it means to be human. That's exactly what you're talking about here. And yet we're like, results, results, results. We want that. And so it's about making that shift and getting back to that connection. And we talk a lot about psychological safety, right? Like, we have environments that are not psychologically safe to make a mistake or speak up. And so there's so much focus on our organizational change to bring it back to what you're saying. And I'm sure listeners are resonating with this as well. We've all been in those places that don't have those elements. And then we're trying to create a culture where continuous improvement thrives. Well, it's not going to unless we have that foundation.
Yeah, I agree. I had an interview with Bobby Miliani.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Miliani.
And he had this amazing takeaway that people should be leaving work in a better mental health state than they arrived.
Absolutely.
And that you would leave work satisfied and inspired and looking forward to tomorrow, rather than tired and stressed and hoping it was Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole purpose of why we want to eliminate waste and create flow and engage people at problem solving at the right levels. And yeah, so I don't know what we have wrong going on, but that's what we're all evangelical about. And my listeners are all trying to do exactly what you said. We just have to help influence getting out of that, I don't know, this current business mindset that we have to do this more command and control type of get results now and the people don't matter. and get back to that essence. And I mean, I strongly believe that there is this element of humanity that we all have. It's just about sometimes it gets pressured down. We think that maybe leadership has to be something else, but it's like I'm seeing those leaders that are thriving are the ones that are creating those environments where, where that's happening. I love seeing, what Larry Culp's doing at GE Aerospace and trying to create this culture. I see so many other companies like Rich Sheridan leading with joy, and Bob Chapman, and so like it is possible. And it's so foundation of so many companies I visit in Japan, but it's not just a Japanese thing. I really believe it's a human thing. We just tend to have lost the way in many ways. So we're on a shared mission, Nick, to restore Ikigai, purpose, Kokorozashi, and Shiko. And that's actually I want to. You and I talked on your podcast about another shared word that we both love. So people who are watching this on YouTube or on my my website can see the triptych of this word in Japanese behind me. It's pronounced shiko. The English translation is intention. And the first symbol is actually another word in Japanese, kokorozashi. And Nick actually has it in his book here. He talks about in kokorozashi. And really it's about that it's a combination of heart, mind, and spirit, which is the one symbol in the samurai element. And it's really, to me, it's about in that leadership space, like what's our leadership mission? And then how do we align our behaviors in that direction? So I like to say intention equals heart plus direction. How do you see this relationship of Ikigai and Kokorozashi together? I know you've talked about it on your podcast too.
I love this word. It's amazing how you stumble upon Japanese words and you immediately fall in love with them. And that happened when I stumbled upon Kokorozashi. So it was really timely because people were really fixated on Ikigai being this idea of, it's your one purpose in life. And as you know, I was thinking, well, that's not it. I'm trying to share that Ikigai is this spectrum. And then, Kokorozashi showed up and I thought, wow, this could be the word, or this is the word really, that articulates that Venn diagram to some degree. And then I started to study it and found out, wow, the word is actually used by Globus, so Japan's biggest business school, and they have their MBAs plan their kokorozashi or craft their kokorozashi over 3 months. And kokorozashi, according to Globus, is an incredibly ambitious goal or personal mission that you want to pursue that will change society. So you're wanting to change an aspect of society, and it's so ambitious that it will take you decades. And it's the journey of climbing a mountain and realizing once you summit the mountain, there's another mountain behind it that you will climb. And it requires incredible passion, very good leadership, and that any profit you make is reinvested because the goal is so big and the goal will evolve over time, that you're not really wanting to, exit with millions. You're wanting to change an aspect of society. So I saw that as, okay, that's the extreme purpose piece of Ikigai, because a kokorozashi, a very ambitious goal, could be a source of Ikigai. It could, gives you meaning, it gives you purpose, it gives you something to wake up to and look forward to. And I thought that would also appeal to a Western audience because they all seem very fixated on the Venn diagram. Well, here's a sort of a better word to articulate it. And it's rooted in Bushido. So the kanji has the symbol of warrior over heart, and we could interpret it as either the heart of the samurai or the leader's mind. And a samurai kokorozashi was something they would give their life up for. And now in business, it's something you want to dedicate your life to. And it doesn't have to be for everyone, but for those people who are seeking to change the world or change an aspect of society, they could certainly use this word as inspiration. I think it's a really appealing kanji. It's such a cool sounding word. And then sasu, so kokorozashi, the second part of the compound means to point. So it could mean where your mind's focused on or where your heart's pointed. It's like,
Yeah,
wow, what a word.
I
Like,
know.
just amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to Japan over 10 years ago, I didn't have a business card or a logo at the time. And I asked the company to put the word in Japanese for the word intention because I believed it was so powerful. And so this is what it came back with, the Kokorozashi plus a symbol meaning the additional symbol to meaning point in the direction of or face towards. And so that, I even have it on my mug, it's like totally my word intention is heart plus direction. It was only years later that I discovered that first kanji also was a standalone word, kokorozashi. And I've been talking about this concept, and I don't think for me, so don't be dissuaded, anyone listening out there. It doesn't have to be you're changing the world for forever, but I believe we all can have this like mission to make the world a better place. And then I see the word shiko or intention is about how do we take then the action. So not just pointing ourselves in that direction, but take the actions to align ourselves and with that and to actually realize our kokorozashi, the impact we want. And so to me, even shiko takes it this a whole nother level where we're talking about actually putting it into action. So knowing your heart, that strength, what you want to achieve, and then working your way every day towards that, knowing that we're going to say, stumble and fail and, everything I talk about with the Daruma dolls and the proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8. So many things. Nick, I'm so excited. We could talk about, Kokorozashi, Shiko, and Ikigai for forever. I'm also super excited that you have a new book called Rolefulness, and I'd love to hear more about what inspired the book and also its connection with, or the extension. To me, it seems like an extension of Ikigai. So yeah, talk about what is Rolefulness and what inspired you to write this book with Professor Kato.
That's the first one we need to state. Rolefulness is a term that Daiki Kato, I call him Daiki because we're really good friends now, but yeah, Professor Kato came up with, and I stumbled upon his paper doing a search on Ikigai and thought, Rolefulness. Wow, that's a cool word. Who wrote this? And I asked Professor Kato to join me on a podcast, and we discussed his paper, the word, and how he came up with it. And it sort of sat in my mind, and I thought, wow, this is such a cool word. People immediately understand it, but it could become this whole new psychology, or it's certainly an area of psychology that Kato Sensei basically came up with. And so about a year after the first podcast, I went back to him and said, look, you need to trademark this, and there's a book in this. Do you want to write one together? And graciously, he said yes. And we met in Brisbane to have a chat about it. And then the book took us 2 years to write on and off. It was quite a challenge taking Daiki's research and then sort of translating it into sort of readable, easy reading language. But it made me think this is an aspect of Ikigai because our roles matter so much to us. They give us identity, purpose. When we have a role we love, we are inspired. We have all these roles: parent, partner, entrepreneur, coach, leader, public speaker, not just one. And they give our life meaning. And I thought, wow, this is a really cool word that articulates not just the relationship, but the role relation aspect of our life. And it's become a module in my own program because I really value it. So yeah, that's how it all came about. And finally, I got my act together and got the book. Got it out finally. So it's one of these things of like learning. You learn a word, you want to learn more. Then once you feel you've accumulated enough knowledge, you then want to share it. So what you talk about. So yeah, it was sort of this amazing word. And it's like, wow, my life is changing all the time because of these words: Ikigai, Kokorozashi, Rolefulness. So it's fascinating how words can really change
Mm,
your life.
I'm right there with you. And so these words too have changed my life too, but to me, it's not the word itself, but as you just articulated, it's about the learning an introspection that happens because of our interest in the word. I discovered the word shiko, and it gave me this new insight and profound knowledge, the kanji symbols, about how I interpreted intention, not just being a cerebral thing that we set our intention, but how do we embody and realize our intention by pointing ourselves in that direction. And so I love how you're taking concepts like Ikigai and now Rolefulness and really breaking it down for people of what you've learned through the discovery of how a word can shape meaning. What are some tips you have for listeners about how to understand, their own rolefulness in their in their lives, and how to make that impact in whether it's work or home?
I'll give you two angles. So there's general rolefulness, and this is probably something we would not value or even dismiss in the West. And this is pretty much Daiki's theory. So there are three ways to enrich your rolefulness: greetings, having conversations, and expressing gratitude. And you can really do that in any context. And so, as you know, in Japan, they greet each other properly every morning.
Yes. Companies
different context.
practice greetings. Yes.
But think about it. Think about it when you're in a group and for some reason someone doesn't greet you. And then you start to think, oh, so-and-so didn't greet me. They don't like me. What's going on? What have I done? And you could lose sleep over someone not greeting you. That's how important they are. So we should greet with intention and make it meaningful. And this is whether it's your family in the morning or strangers down the street or where you go to your local cafe. Then we have meaningful conversations, and think about how a conversation can change your life. It opens up your world. It makes you feel good. So we should engage in conversations, and that obviously involves listening as well, active listening. And then expressing gratitude, thanking people, and how important that is. And yeah, sometimes don't want to be negative, but sometimes it feels good to thank someone, and it feels wonderful to be thanked, and that really matters. And I remember just recently, I realized, Rolefullness, I could do a case study on a local Vietnamese restaurant, and the previous owner was just not very rollful. You'd walk in, hi, what do you want? And serve you $10, bye. And yeah, her business didn't last long. And then someone took it over about 6 months ago. Remember the first day, hi, how are you? Welcome. We've just opened. What's your name? Oh, Nick. Nick, how are you? And we had this conversation, and thank you so much for coming. And now every time I go in there, oh, hi, Nick, how are you? Greetings. We have this chat. Always thanks me. And, she's like a friend now. And her business is booming. Like, she's just always busy, got multiple staff on, simply because it appeared that she was practicing rolefulness. And that's what it can do. It can change your business. It can change your relationships. It makes you approachable, likable. It creates synergy. So yeah, that's general rolefulness. Then there's what we would call individual rolefulness, where you take a common role, so parent, coach, but you align your behaviors to your values you wish to attach to this role. So if you want to be a certain type of father who's loving and playful, patient, then you have to think, okay, to be loving, how can I be loving? I can either say the words, I can hug. Obviously, yes, context is important. So when my son was very young, I was always tickling, hugging, piggybacking. Now he's 21, and obviously we don't do that anymore. But we have banter. We have playful banter. So yeah, you think about, how can I fulfill this role and express my values, and then what values do I want to express in each particular role, and then you tie it to specific behaviors. And then you know when you're violating that role. So if I flew off the handle and yelled at my son in anger, I would deeply regret that. Then I know I've violated this value of love, of connection, of purpose. And I would obviously
Yeah.
go and apologize, but I don't want to even get to that point. So if you clearly identify this role of who you want to be, then that's another type of rolefulness, because it's a common role, but you have this feeling it's unique to you.
I love hearing that explanation. And, I've read the book and I saw that, but just how you articulated it right now, Nick, really resonates with me. And it's a lot how I use that concept of intention. It's like, what's the impact you want to have? And are the actions you're taking really aligned with that? And I talk with leaders about how we're switching between roles actually all day. We're like the leader that needs to set direction. We're the team member who needs to collaborate. We're now transitioning into home, and how the behaviors we need to take actually shift based on those
Yeah.
contexts. So I think this concept of rolefulness actually describes exactly what I've been experiencing as well. I really value that, this framework, and I'll incorporate some of that into how I talk about our intentionality of how we're showing up to be the person we want to be in any of those roles. And it can shift, right? So it depends on the human being and context. So thank you.
That's the crucial point. Like, who do you want to be in this role? And okay, how do you be that person? That's it. When we have all this opportunity to be kind of these different people in the context of roles.
Yeah. And my experience too is that, like, while our roles shift and maybe how we show up a bit, like the core, the essence, doesn't. Like, if we go back to that original purpose, there's something in there, like, we want to help people be the best version of themselves or see something. And like that I see themes that carry through no matter what role we're in. And I think that's sort of in your description too. It's like, what is that impact you want to have? Just how we manifest might need to alter a bit as well.
Yeah, there is another word I love, jibun rashi. So jibun meaning self, and rashi meaning ness or likeness. And so, yeah, in the West, we do have that tendency to say to be the best version of yourself. In Japan, they use jibun rashi. Like, I just want to be myself. I want to be worthy of myself. And it's really light. Whereas I think be the best version of yourself can be heavy. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I got it. Number one, the best me ever. Yes.
Yeah. So I love this jibun rashi. I want to be myself in the context of these various roles.
And maybe that's that concept of authenticity, right? Like, how are we our authentic self? How can we express who we are and have the maximum impact but in a way that's not heavy, but it is just real. Going back to where we started earlier in this conversation, how can we be in a way that connects and does good and has a sense of purpose without being so heavy as well. Nick, I feel like we could talk for hours on all of this, and I love that our conversation started a few years ago, and this is really the essence of a chain of learning, that we actually were both in Japan a year ago and got to have dinner together in Nagoya. I hope we will also align in maybe later this year. We were talking earlier before the podcast recording. What's your best advice for leaders really wanting to bring in the spirit of Ikigai and Rolefulness, about how to get started in getting more intentional about how they're showing up in being their authentic self?
If you're a leader, I would say start with yourself and then maybe think about, am I being the leader? I want to be in the context of my role in my relationships. How am I treating my staff, my employees? If you think, am I approachable? Do they see me not only as someone, inspiring, but am I compassionate and caring? And am I creating the environment for my employees to leverage their values, strengths, so they can do their role in a way that not only benefits the company, but in a way that if they're using their unique creativity and skills, that probably would improve the companies in ways that, you hadn't thought about. So I think, the greatest gift of Ikigai could be allowing a person to pursue their work role where they're using their unique creativity and they're feeling like they're adding value. And so to create the space for that, I think you have to have this environment of ibasho. And so as a leader, you're really there to serve others and to help create this purpose-driven ikigai is what I would call it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all about, opening yourself up, having conversations and approaching stuff and saying, oh, how can I help you fulfill your role? What am I missing? What have you discovered? So things like that. So it comes down to, getting clarity, having conversations, and maybe even being a vulnerable leader and approaching your staff and saying, oh, I don't know anything about this role. I feel uneasy talking to you about it. But tell me, what am I missing? What do you need? How can I help you? And it's a form of, it's even like a form of intimacy. Like it's this intellectual intimacy. You're asking the right questions, so you can connect closer, so you can create the environment to create better conditions, so that you can achieve all these goals. So that would be my advice, but also maybe bring in fun ikigai to the workplace.
Yes.
Have things that can be fun and bring this playfulness to work.
It all goes back to the humanity, and fun and happiness is part of that. One of the companies I talk about all the time, they say happiness is our purpose. There's a company in Japan, and they really embody everything that you said. But it's how we get back to that human connection, showing up authentically, creating connection. You summed it up so well here. So I recommend everyone, if you haven't gotten Nick's book, Ikigai-Kan really goes into the essence of Ikigai beyond and transcending the Venn diagram to the original feeling and pension. And I love this framework of Rolefulness, about how do we manifest, how do we actually embody the impact that we want to have in whatever role that we have. So thank you, Nick Kemp, for coming on Chain of Learning. I look forward to continuing our learning together and with, just spreading the spirit of a life worth living together.
Well, thank you, Katie. I've got your book as well, so I recommend that. And you're someone I'm inspired by and look up to. I remember stumbling upon your YouTube videos and thinking, who is this amazing woman with this incredible energy and this fun and exciting approach to sharing Japanese ideas? I've got to talk to her. I've got to meet her. So I'm glad we're friends now, and I look forward to our next lunch or dinner.
Yes.
And maybe collaborating
Yes.
on something in the future.
I would love that. I see that in our future. And I almost forgot, Nick, you have a special announcement of something new that's coming out at the end of 2025. So drum roll, this is the first announcement of this. What's coming out, Nick?
Another book. Can you believe it?
A year of Ikigai. Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So it's so weird because it's one of those things. I did not like writing. I struggled with grammar, spelling. But once you find your Ikigai, you can express it in all these different ways. So finding your Ikigai, really allows you to grow as a person. So maybe we can end with that.
Yeah, what better said? Yes, when you find your Ikigai, the rest will flow. So thank you, Nick, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Katie.
There's so much that I loved about this conversation with Nick Kemp, but what really stood out to me is this. Whether we're talking about Ikigai, Kokorozashi, or shiko, intention, it all comes back to aligning with purpose. Ikigai, understanding your purpose and meaning for self, what makes your life worth living. Kokorozashi, understanding your purpose for others, a commitment to the difference you want to make in this world. In shiko, intention, putting your purpose for others and self into practice, how you can take action to not just set your intention, but to align your behavior and create impact. At the heart of each of these concepts is the reminder that leadership isn't about tools or frameworks. It's about cultivating meaning through simple joys, authentic connections, and creating spaces where people feel safe, valued, and inspired. It's about being over doing. It's about being inspired and then putting your learning into action with authenticity. So as you reflect on this episode, I also invite you to reflect on these questions. Where are you finding your own sense of Ikigai, personal purpose, right now? And how are you bringing your purpose forward to serve others and aligning your daily actions with your deeper intention? Perhaps start small. What if you practice intentional Rolefulness through the 3 simple habits that Nick shared: greeting others with intention, having meaningful conversations, and expressing gratitude? These are everyday steps that can help you and your teams create ibasho, welcoming places where people thrive. And remember Nick's parting words: the change starts with you. This conversation with Nick ties directly into so many themes we've explored on Chain of Learning. Leadership isn't about frameworks. It's about meaning, connection, and humanity. And if you want to go even deeper into the essence of Ikigai, Kokorozashi, and Shiko, and discover the real meaning of Kaizen, I invite you to join me for my next immersive Japan leadership experience. In Japan, together, you'll not just learn about these words, you'll experience them in practice, in the culture, and in your own leadership. You can find details and apply for the next leadership cohort at kbjanderson.com/Japan trip. The link's also in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, please follow or subscribe to Chain of Learning on your favorite podcast player and share the episode with your colleagues and friends so that we can all strengthen our chain of learning together. And if you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review it. It really does help people discover these conversations. Thanks for being a link in my chain of learning today. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.